To discuss it all now, we bring in Eliza Collins. She is a congressional reporter for USA Today, and she joins me now from Capitol Hill. All right, Eliza, this represents yet another twist in this story, the story about this meeting. What are the implications? I mean, it's another example of us hearing a portion of the truth, but not the whole truth.
Right, you said another twist. It's a very windy road at this point. We saw the first statement from Donald Trump Jr. to later this week, where he actually came out with emails, was completely different. The first statement was that there was a meeting on adoptions. By the end, there were emails where it said, we're going to meet with a Russian government attorney, because the Russian government wants to help your dad. So it's completely different. And now there's another person. NBC is reporting there might be like a third person. So it's just another twist. It's kind of more convoluted. It makes more questions for the White House, and it makes it harder for Trump Jr.'s lawyers and Jared Kushner's lawyers to answer.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason why, you know, these investigations are expanding and expanding and expanding. Just tell us everything we need to know right up front. And really, the only reason we even know about this meeting is because of Jared Kushner. He updated his request for security clearance. He updated the form because initially, when he first wrote out the form, he had no names on that form. It's been updated 3 times, and now there are 100 names on the form. What are you hearing from lawmakers about Kushner's involvement in all of this?
Lawmakers are actually pretty hesitant to talk about Kushner. Democrats are happy to talk about Kushner. They're frustrated that he's, you know, not just in the administration, but at the very highest level. He's getting classified briefings. He's with the president. You know, he does have this clearance. And so we are seeing some Democrats calling for him to step down. We actually saw Bill Flores, who's a Republican and actually from Texas, fairly Trump-aligned, saying, look, I think it's time for the Trump kids, including Jared Kushner, to get out of this administration. That was a little bit shocking. But most Republicans are kind of reserving judgment. They get to say that the FBI is investigating it, congressional committees are investigating it. We're not going to comment. If they believe Jared Kushner should step aside, then they'll say so.
So meanwhile, lawmakers are toiling away. The Senate Republicans are trying to hammer out a health care bill, a new health care bill that will get the support, enough support to pass. But there are already holdouts that are being quite frank about not liking the bill on both sides, more conservative versus more centrist. What's the likelihood of this getting the votes that it needs?
Well, this bill faces a very tough pass. And actually, the first step is just to even get it on the floor, to get it to be debated. And that's where we're seeing holdouts. So Rand Paul, who is super conservative, libertarian-minded, says this does not do enough to repeal Obamacare, doesn't work for me. Basically, they always kind of assumed he was going to be hard to get. Mitch McConnell wasn't even calling him back. So that's kind of where the leadership thought he was. Susan Collins is, on the other end, very, very moderate, had a ton of issues with the bill, said this is not going to help people of Maine. Maine tends to be a little bit older, so they have more health issues, and this bill is just, it's rural, so this bill is just going to really funding for like rural hospitals and Medicaid and things like that, where her residents, it was going to hurt them. So those were sort of the assumed no's. They said no after they saw the new draft. They can't lose anymore. And they can't lose anymore even to bring the bill to the floor. So we're not even talking about passing at this point. We're talking about just bringing it for debate. And there's about 8 other people who were previous no's and are now undecided and are waiting for that CBO score. That's the score that says like how many people will lose insurance and how much it'll cost. That's supposed to come out next week, and they're kind of waiting to say if they're yes or no's until they see that.
So who are some of the names that we are watching? You're right. At one more no vote and it's over for this bill. So who's likely to go either way? Who do you think might be influenced in one direction or the other?
So Dean Heller is someone we're watching really, really, really closely. He is the most vulnerable senator up in 2018 in a state Hillary Clinton won. The map looks really good for Republican senators, kind of besides Dean Heller. He's been against the bill very strongly. He called it a lie. And his Republican governor is also very against it. So if he's arguing he's helping Nevada, he's kind of has to align himself with the governor. So he's someone we're watching really closely as that possible no vote. Someone who might get on board is like a Mike Lee. He worked with Ted Cruz on this amendment to make it more conservative. The amendment was added. Ted Cruz said he got on board. Mike Lee wasn't in the final negotiations, so he doesn't like it. He feels like some of what he wanted had been taken out of his amendment, so he's undecided. But his name's on this amendment. He worked hard on it, so he's someone you might see actually get on board.
So here's the thing, though. Lawmakers have already delayed their August break by a couple of weeks. Mitch McConnell really wants to get this done. But if he doesn't get it done and it doesn't pass before the August recess, then what happens?
I don't know what happens. I mean, they've delayed it so that they say that it's going to pass next week and they're going to move on to some other things. Of course, we have tax reform, which was promised by the end of this year. Not just Mitch McConnell wants this done. Donald Trump really wants this done. He tweeted from Paris a bunch this morning about, you know, Republicans will get it together. They'll get this. I'm waiting to sign it. You know, if this doesn't get done, it might kind of be the end. It might be like, look, we spent months and months on this. We need to move on to tax reform or something where we can get a win. But again, we just don't know. This is such unprecedented territory because there are Republicans in the House, Senate, and White House, and they've promised this for 7 years. So I don't know if they just give it up.
Yeah, and everyone says tax reform will be very difficult without passing a new health care bill because the two are intertwined, and tax reform, reforming the tax portion of this health care bill is part of the sticking point for a lot of lawmakers.
Right. And this healthcare has just really shown all the divides in the Republican Party. Yes, they're all one party, but a Susan Collins is completely different than a Ted Cruz. And so those divides are not going to go away on a new topic. They'll just take different angles.
Right. Indeed. Eliza Collins of USA Today, thank you so much.
Thanks.